What's going on, leaders? Thank you for watching Leadership Lockdown. I am Aaron Bolton, and I'm very thrilled to bring to you today's guest. She's a leadership coach who focuses on emotional intelligence. I had a really great time talking to her, and I hope you really enjoy this conversation. If you like the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, and if you like the content, please subscribe and click that little bell. If you're watching this on LinkedIn, maybe give me a follow. That'd be pretty cool. All right, let's go. Here we go. Ready to roll? All right, I will kick it off. Band. All right. Hey, what's going on, leaders? I am Aaron Bolton, and thank you for tuning in to Leadership Lockdown. I am very excited today to have on the show. We have Alyssa Poggioli. Look at that. I promised I wasn't going to mess up that last name, and then I stuttered on the first. She is a leadership coach with an emphasis on emotional intelligence. Basically, she helps leaders become better people. And I think that is a very admirable, not just goal, but what's the word? Oh, you know the word I'm talking about. All the leaders out there know the word I'm talking about. Oh, it's going to come to me. Alyssa's going to come to me in the middle of your sentence, and I'm going to say, I'm sorry, and then I'm going to blurt it out. How are you doing, Alyssa?
I am well. Thanks for asking. I would say leadership is about feeling, being able to feel into what you are doing, who you're being, and how you're showing up and why you are. So in case, for those of you who don't know, emotional intelligence is all about becoming aware and taking ownership and personal responsibility in how you're showing up and understanding why you're showing up in that space. So did you think of the word yet? Did it come to you?
No. Oh, no. See, there's no time frame on when it's going to jump in my mind. It's just going to, it could be like right when we're like, all right, well, look, I've had a great conversation. Oh yeah, it might be one of those, who knows? Spontaneity. So I got to know you or know of you from a mutual connection on LinkedIn. And I'm not sure if I was on his page or I was looking at some of the things maybe he reposted, and I saw a video that you posted. And it was motivational, it was inspiring. And so then, and I haven't told you this, but you reached out to me just by happenstance or however, or whatever reason you reached out and saying, hi, you know, because I connected with you. And when you did, I was like, oh, hey, I've been wanting to reach out to you, because I was nervous to reach out to you, because I was like, wow, you've got something.
Well, I'm very intimidating. I'm very intimidating. I don't know if you. Stop
screaming, Alyssa, please. No, but I was, because I liked what you said. I really liked what you said, and I wanted to, I just wanted to make sure that, I don't know, if I approached you or asked you, hey, would you be on the podcast, I wouldn't look like an idiot, and you would say yes. So when you reach out, I was like, oh, this is my chance. So I'm happy that you reached out. Thank you so much for reaching out. And if you could do the listeners all a favor and kind of tell us what you do exactly.
So the easy way to say it is I ask powerful questions. I have conversations with impact, which sounds very streamlined, but the problem or the crisis that we're in my professional opinion, is that nearly half, if not more, of human existence.
Calling.
Oh!
Calling. See, I told you. Sorry about that.
Over half of today's population is operating under a preconceived or preconditioned way in which they think that they should be based on what they think others think. So there's a lot of thinking going on. I'm going to repeat it. You are likely operating under a way of being or showing up based on how you think you should or how you think others think you should. Right. And that's messed up, because it puts you in a space of human doing versus being human. There's a lot of obligation and expectation and suppression of feelings, lack of feelings, inability to feel when we are constantly operating under a doing method versus understanding we are a human being. Things change, shit happens, pardon my French, but the difference that we struggle with, especially in the United States, is when we choose to be human, there's opportunity. Like, instead of the doing with obligation and expectation, when we be, there's opportunity and choice. And that's what we're lacking. So I help people to get clear on that, because in emotional intelligence and in leadership, or just becoming, as an introvert and an empath, I deal with a lot of like analytical thinkers, men particularly, who want to be in leadership roles, but they don't have the confidence because they're also introverts or really analytical, strategic minded people. And when you have that wiring, there's often a disconnect because there's that lack of empathy or understanding, which in a leadership role, you have got to have. I don't like using the word have, but it's an essential skill to have. So I have conversations with impact that allow people to confidently connect, increase emotional intelligence, usually enhance intimacy, and be able to experience more choice and flexibility in the way that they live, which is very freeing when you get rid of the societal conditioning.
Right. Wow. That was, all right, everyone. That was amazing. We're going to go ahead and wrap it. No, that's awesome. That's very, very well said. So I told you when we talked, a couple of weeks ago, one of the things that drew me to you as a leader, you as a person, was just reading from what you have on LinkedIn. You're all about connections, making connections with others. And I mean, I've been a long time advocate for connecting with people, the way that they feel comfortable to be connected with. A lot of times it's, people may think, well, we've heard it before, right? The golden rule is treat people the way that you want to be treated. Well, not everyone wants to be treated the way that you want to be treated. I know. So I'm not even sure who coined it, but it's a platinum rule: treat people the way that they want to be treated, right? And to treat people the way they want to be treated, you have to understand yourself. You have to understand them. You have to have that ability to open up your mind, open up your ears, and, find out more about that person. So that drew me, that really excited me about, even more about talking with you, because you have that mindset. So when you mentioned right now, something jumped in my head here, when you mentioned, stripping away or just being human, stripping away the presuppositions, the preconceived notions that you might have or other people might have of you in certain situations, or no, you need to act like this, or it's for someone to act for, and I've heard that before, Aaron, you should act like this. You should, well, I mean, of course you go to the greats, look at the greats. Did the greats act like, the people that maybe anyone would clearly say, yeah, successful? I mean, apple pie in the sky, Michael Jordan, right? Did he act like a regular human being and fall into the societal norms? Absolutely not. He was a cut above. And it reminded me of something I heard Kevin Hart say, which he's a beast of a worker. He's a workhorse like crazy. And he was at a Super Bowl party, or the Super Bowl party. I go to Super Bowl parties. He was at the Super Bowl, and it was in the suite afterwards. The Patriots won, I believe. And he was there with his wife and a couple friends and, a bunch of others, of course. And Jeff Bezos walks in, and he said that, his buddy said, "Hey, look, there's Jeff Bezos." And he's like, "Oh my goodness, Jeff Bezos." He said, I'm gonna go talk to him. And his friend was like, "What? No, don't be that guy. Don't be that guy. Don't go talk to Jeff Bezos."
What guy?
Yeah. And Kevin said that Kevin, because I know him, right? Mr. Hart said that he and his buddy actually got into like a little argument. He's like, "What are you talking about?" He said, "That is the man who is closest to $1 trillion. What is that? What is that?" And he said, "I'm gonna talk to him. This might be my only chance just to find out, to get knowledge." And I think that's what a lot of people are missing. The knowledge is there for them and they don't want to accept it or interpret it, or a lot of people don't get that knowledge. So either way, the story goes that he walked up to him and he said, "Hey, just want to introduce myself. I'm blown away by you, basically. And now is not the time for a conversation. I just want you to remember who I am, because I will be seeing you again. Our paths will cross, and I want to have this conversation." And of course, Jeff Bezos was like, "Yeah, sounds great. Pleasure to meet you." And I mean, just that one little connection, making that connection with that other person is, I mean, that could be invaluable. So I say all that, and so there is that. I think there is that fine line where you don't want to act as if as what everyone expects you to act, that cookie cutter way. But then you do have to have that social awareness, that social awareness where you don't cross that line, and then now you really are the awkward. For instance, Kevin Hart in that situation, if he sat there and said, "Jeff Bezos, how'd you make Amazon?" during a party, that would probably crossing that line, right? He did the smart thing and said, "I don't want to bother you I want to introduce, and later we'll talk." So how do you suggest, people approach that line without overstepping it?
There's a powerful or an important thing that you mentioned is cookie cutter. Cookie cutter is a very surface level way of life. It's very boxy. It's parameter restrictive. And the thing about social awareness or emotional intelligence is it is a practice and a choice to remember that humans are humans. There's nothing more disrespectful or unfair to someone else to be so in your head to then create a form of disconnect based on a preconceived judgment, insecurity, notion, or unfamiliar thought pattern that you're having given that person or situation. It's why the Four Agreements by Don Ruiz, it's a beautiful book. It's very simple, but don't make assumptions. And as humans, this is one of the hardest things to do, because making an assumption that allows you to feel comfortable or safe is our automatic route. It's a protective mechanism that you use. So permission to feel, remembering that humans are humans, that we're all the same. And that may sound messed up, but even in professional settings, we've all been to a corporate party or a happy hour, and that stigma is very real. I shouldn't go talk to that person because they're the VP of this and this. It's bullshit. Wipe it out. That human is the human, and they probably have a child. They probably deal with the same struggles as you. But when you have when you allow a title to identify a person, that is where we are in a crisis of disconnect, because it's that stigma of you go and the first question you ask someone is, "What do you do?" And I always rebuttal that. traveling internationally 9 months before COVID started. And I would always ask, do you want to know what I do, or do you want to know who I am and what I'm about? Because those are two completely different things. But in the world, especially the United States, our identity is so focused around our efficiency, our success, and our reputation. And for what? To work our whole lives doing on an automated way that's just going to leave us full of resentment, confusion, and loneliness?
So something you said there, Michelle Obama has a documentary on Netflix that came out a month or two ago.
I think I saw it. I've not watched it though. Yeah, it's in my queue.
Yeah,
Is it
it's
good?
good. It's really good. I don't want to spoil the ending, but the butler does it. No, it's really good. And one thing she says in there is, somebody asks one of the students, she's talking to different high school students, and I forget what the question was, but it was in context to the same thing about, who you are as a person, and what you're presenting to people. What type of worth are you showing? And so many times, she says, so many times people will say, it's all about the who are you, what do you do? I'm sorry, not the who are you, but what do you do? What do you do? What degree do you have? Where do you work? And it should be more, but it's not more about the who are you? What's your story? And when she said that, and my wife was watching it.
What do you value?
Yeah, exactly. What are your values? So important, especially when you said people kind of cling sometimes to a. Well, you didn't say that. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but people sometimes cling to that title, or you said they look at that other person with the title, and that maybe that person projects on the other person with the title as if, okay, that's who they are, or that other person, the person with the title, is maybe that's what they want to show. But titles can go quick. I mean, many people who are, in the workforce right now, even the youngest in the workforce, they were around for 9/11, right? So far since then, I graduated in 2001, graduated high school in 2001. And so, I've been working since then, and I've seen with 9/11, so many layoffs, so ridiculous amount of layoffs. And I was working a job selling cell phones when I was 19, and I was working alongside a guy in his late 40s who had a full family, and he was the director of finance for some company like a couple of years or a year previous at 9/11. He's right next to me, and now we've gone and we went through the housing crisis. A lot of people laid off, and titles gone away. And now with COVID, a lot of people furloughed, a lot of people laid off, titles gone away. And I hope more people, if there's any silver lining that can come from this, I hope it opens more people's eyes. Exactly. They can come and they can go, and it's a title. I've known people with lofty titles that they didn't do anything. They literally, they didn't do much, and it was, I don't know how they got that title, but they got a title, and good for them. But that title can be taken away. I've had great titles before. Those are gone, So, yeah, I like that. You cannot hold on to the titles. One thing that I used to say, I try not to say this, but oftentimes some people are like, adults are just like kids. I don't think that's true. I think we're all human. We're all extremely human, and I think some of the ways that we act as kids, they still come out as human. They still come out as adults, but just a little more mature. But the foundation is the same. And I used to teach middle school, and one thing I would constantly try to drill into the heads of the kids is first of all, don't be too cool for school. Don't act like you know everything. Don't act like you know anything and that you don't want to learn. If you think you know everything, then you know nothing. Start laughing at yourself, because if you're not laughing at yourself, then other people are laughing at you. And don't take yourself too seriously, because no one else is taking you seriously. So yeah, we got to learn to kind of strip away that and get down to the human of us all. I like that. How do we do that?
I would say
one answer for everyone. One answer. No, I'm just kidding.
Listen to understand versus listen to respond.
So good.
I find that really hard, even as a coach some days. But as a leader, wanting to make impact, you can't make impact if you're being a knower. Like, choose to be a learner. There's a difference. Knowers always have to get it right, or always know what's right, versus a learner is wanting to get it right. So knower is needing to be right, learner is needing to get it right. And there's a difference in that process. And the way we do that is to be able to listen to understand versus listen and respond, and be able to, like you said, either laugh at yourself or just take a step back, admit and be vulnerable of like something as simple as, I don't know that answer, or I don't know what the impact of this is going to be. I don't know where to go from here, but we'll figure it out with time, or let's schedule a couple conversations. It's so easy, but it's very hard when you are operating under avoiding conflict and an identity protective way that always puts you in the knowing. It's like humility is gold.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, just imagine that, I would imagine that, and I've been there too, people maybe not knowing or being asked a question and they want to respond, and maybe they don't know the answer, but they don't want to come off as if they're ignorant or they don't know the answer. So they try to say something, or even if maybe they think they know the answer, somebody else has another idea, another opinion. Rather than taking that other person's opinion in, they're really pushing their idea, pushing their opinion. And I get that could be a defense mechanism. Maybe it's just, just so they don't, they feel that they're not confident enough and, looking bad or whatever. But
or
imagine,
it could be an efficiency thing too. It could absolutely, like, they think that they have an answer, they have a solution, and like, they just want to apply it. And there's nothing wrong with that too. But there is something to be said about when an idea comes to you or someone asks you a question, to not do anything before you ask 3 questions. Like, ask 3 layers down and then move forward.
I like that. I like what you said too about, just you're losing an opportunity if you don't continue working with, or don't ask those 3 questions, or if you don't say, hey, I don't know that, let's see if we can work together. I mean, let's say the other person is trying to put that individual in a gotcha moment, and stumping you. And when that person hears a question, they respond with, I'm really not too sure, but it sounds like you might have some ideas on that. Maybe you and I can work together and just schedule, can I take you out for coffee? Maybe we can talk over lunch.
Would you mind sharing more about what you're thinking? Let's
discuss that. Now you're gaining knowledge, you're able to make a connection. You're learning more about someone. And that's really what it's all about, right? I mean, we can't go through this world alone. I look at shows like The Walking Dead, and I jokingly, but I don't know, maybe seriously, like, I don't know if I'd want to fight through the zombie apocalypse. Like, that is a lonely, lonely time, and then if you get on the other side, you are there with some damaged people, damaged people, you know. But basically what we always learn from those shows is you have to stick together. When someone, or in a scary movie, whatever, I'm going off on my own. Oh, that's the next one. That one's gone, you know. The value of other people, having other people, other connections in your life is massive, not something to be overlooked. Could you do us some more favors here and kind of walk us through pre-COVID, like, you know, what your day-to-day was, or, you know, what were some of the things going on in your professional life?
Yeah, so I was in a program called Remote Year, and I was scheduled to do 12 countries in 12 months, 4 in Latin America, 4 in Southeast Asia, 3 in Europe, and then end in Cape Town, South Africa. So every 4 to 5 weeks, I was transitioning countries. Latin America, Southeast Asia, I absolutely love it. My day-to-day, I'm a very disciplined person. I spent 9 years managing corporate fitness centers. I'm originally like a health, well-being, and fitness professional. So in terms of taking care of myself from movement, meditation, journaling, and I'm just a naturally active person. So I obviously usually give myself time in the morning to meditate, journal, get some movement in. In each of these countries, we had a remote workspace. So I would go into the office. I'm a 6 to 3 brain. That's when I really, really excel. So I try to have my clients within those hours for me. But otherwise, exploring the countries, there was usually a bingo card of things to try, things to see, things to do. So I would learn a lot about the countries as a local, and, you know, continue to just serve people through conversations. But as I evolved, I'm getting more into wanting to develop like coursework or like content that you can purchase and just do it yourself at home, with some calls sprinkled in between. Because if there's anything I learned during my time abroad, is connecting with people in person when you're going to move in 4 weeks is challenging. I'm not going to say it's impossible, because that's bullshit, but also connecting with people online, is creating clients online is somewhat difficult when you're in a different time zone and you're unable to like keep that conversation going, like in the chat. So writing, I'm writing more. I'm interviewing on podcasts, and just really focusing on creating content. Go ahead.
Well, no, I wanted to ask about your remote year, or your time abroad. So when you were in these other countries, were you seeing clients in those countries, or were they clients back in the States?
Definitely back in the stateside. All my calls are done through Zoom. So, and that's where I have like my community from my corporate fitness profession, of people like personal training, taking classes, or just knowing me from managing the gyms. That's something I'm really happy to be back in the States with, because I can spend more time creating and connecting online. But that's not to say other people in the workspaces, because it was like a WeWork, where there were other professionals coming. To be honest though, oftentimes there was a language barrier.
Right.
And the beautiful thing I learned in being in, 9 countries that had different language, is that you can still connect, even though you cannot speak the same language. At the end of the day, humans are humans, and we all pretty much have the same basic principles of like, smile, be kind, be polite. Like it's the universal language of understanding humans are energy. And as you were talking about earlier, like children and adults are similar. We absolutely are. But the problem is as children going into adolescence and then young adults, is we're conditioned to have our mind come in and mess things up in terms of being able to be intuitive, feel more, be creative, be emotional and expressive in it. The one thing we do have as as adults is that we should be able to effectively articulate better, but we cannot, because of our minds and our ability to filter, block, like avoid things. Children don't have that precondition to be this way, act this way, dress this way, perform this way. They're just kids, right? But as
Right.
adults, we have all our preconceived judgments and concerns and conditions that are set in place that block us from being able to do that.
Right. I think it's funny, as even adults looking at kids, when we're on when we talked last time, we touched really quickly on the, impact or intent versus impact. Right. And I wish, it'd be grand if more people would focus on, when they, in conversations, focus on the other person's intent rather than what the impact, is happening. Because sometimes those impacts can be, can miss that intent. But if they just had the, we hear it all the time. I'm sure you hear it, is, I can't believe that person said this, they meant this. It's like, well, did they mean that? What was their intent? What was their heart behind it? What did they want to, convey? And adults looking at children, I think it's easier to look at children and immediately go for the intent. What was their intent? Well, that's not what they meant. But going on that, adults, children, we're all human. I wish more adults would look at other adults with that first jump of intent. If what I hear in sessions sometimes are, I can't believe that person is acting like that. They're so mean, they're so rude. And I dig a little deeper and ask, well, why do you think that is? What do you think they're trying to do? What would be their motivation for being that way? And because really, when it comes down to it, people that just want to hurt you just to hurt you, and just, they don't care about it, well, those are like sociopaths and psychopaths. Right. And we don't come across those individuals too often. Right. So good chances there's a miscommunication. My daughter, I don't mean to jump from sociopath, psychopath to my daughter,
Your daughter.
But my daughter in kindergarten, we were having a conference with a teacher last school year. And she said that, my daughter's really expressive, and we make sure we try our best to let her express herself, how she feels to express herself. We don't want to put her in any type of box or anything. And the teacher was having them do math, and she would play classical music, in the background, soft classical music.
Nice.
And she said, my daughter stood up, and in the middle, everyone's doing work, and she stands up and walks over to the teacher, and the intern says, excuse me, I just feel inside my heart, I need to dance right now. I need to express myself. And the teacher is laughing, telling us this. And my wife and I are like, yeah, that tracks. And she said that she said, no, okay, go for it. And just right there in the middle of class, just like danced around like a moon, sunshine flower child from the 60s, and then sat down and went back to work, and it was the intent. The teacher was, well, what was her intention? What, she wasn't trying to be disruptive. She wasn't trying to be a goofball. She really had something inside of her that she just wanted, like some emotion that she wanted to express through the majesty of dance. Now, obviously, you have to balance the social awareness as an adult, but it'd be really cool if we all had more of a practice to look immediately towards the intent rather than what the impact is, or what the usually is the impact would be, like the negative side of things. But yeah.
Well, and I'll piggyback on that, even just as an introvert and a middle child, where I've spent a lot of my life either overcompensating and undercompensating. The reason I'm into emotional intelligence and I'm so passionate about changing the crisis or the conditioning of human doing to being human is because I've done that. I've been that. I've lived the majority of my life operating under a system that like I knew didn't feel good and it wasn't working, but I didn't know how to get out of it or what to do with it. And so even as a person who I'm very good at in terms of conflict, like I'm a peacemaker. So I will take it on, or I'll just make excuses to, you know, resolve it, or I'll just, you know, become helpful so like the conflict can resolve. And so for me, communicating, if you're saying something that is like triggering me or making me feel dismissed or not good, or even like in relationships, if it's like turning me on, I'm working on a day-to-day basis of speaking about the impact something is having, because I'm not a very expressive person. I was, again, middle child of 5, raised on a farm. Like showing emotion is weakness. If you act out of line, you're going to get beaten. So I'm very like streamlined on my waves of whether I'm excited or whether I'm angry. I'm just very like stable, I guess. But that's not good, because then often it allows people to kind of abuse me and my stable lack of reaction, to where me being able to articulate like, hey, you doing that or saying that has a very negative, the impact it's having on me is it's making me want to like disconnect, block you, shut my door, not speak to you. And even being mindful and articulating that has been a game changer for me in my personal life, with my partner, with my clients, or just even with my own family members and my parents.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally relate. We've talked before. You know, I grew up on a farm, not quite like yours, but yeah, on a farm there's no time for drama. There's work to be done. And also, you had horses, didn't you? Did you have horses?
We had one until it bit my dad, and then it disappeared.
Oh, well, since you had a horse, do you think that's why you were so stable? But when you said stable, I was like, that's going to be
I know.
said.
I get it.
Thank you. I can explain it.
It's still terrible, but I get it.
Of course it is. Of course it is. Oh, rocking the boat here. All right. So we're in COVID, you know, this COVID time right now. Were you able to finish your year remote, or did you get to go? How many countries, or any countries, or some?
Yeah, I was able to do 9. It's interesting because I loved Southeast Asia. I actually quit the program in January when I was in Japan. I loved Thailand. I wanted to go back immediately. But after Japan, I did go down to Malaysia. My plan was to stay there for 2 weeks and then go to Bali, because Thailand has a smoke season to where you can't go there because the burning season. You can't breathe. So I needed to kind of suspend my time, like getting up there for when I wanted to be there in mid-March is when it's over. It goes from like early February to late March. But I got sick. I got salmonella in Malaysia.
Oh, wow.
My second week there, ended up getting an infection in my colon. So I spent 2 weeks in the hospital in Malaysia.
Oh, goodness.
Had like a 4-week recovery of making sure the inflammation was down, getting my GI tract back up and running. And that literally took me, I mean, it was from February 10 to March 18th, where I was having to go to the doctor on a weekly basis, and I wasn't approved to fly anywhere. But then as soon as I got approved on like the 18th or 20th, due to the restrictions and stuff, and the requests, I just came back to the Chicagoland area because I didn't want to be, I was already in quarantine or isolation for 5 weeks at that point, that I'm like, I just need to get back to where people know me and I can have help and just not be accruing all this debt and going crazy by myself so far away from home. It's not like I was in Mexico or something in the same time zone. I was,
Right.
in a different continent.
Hey, you're literally on the other side of the world.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. That's like, I've been sick, like up north, and my family's in Florida, and I'm like, I can't take this no more. And, same time zone, so I can't, that's gotta be so rough being that sick, being away from everyone and being just the knowledge of the distance that you're away, but then the time zone, the time difference as well. That's gotta be so rough. So you're back in the States now. You're in Chi-Town for all you cool cats and kittens out there. That's Chicago. You're in Chicago. So now with the COVID, with the lockdowns, some things are starting to lighten up. But even at the lightening up, there's still going to be a lot of companies. I know of a lot of companies already that have said, yeah, we're going to ride it out for the rest of the year, or we're going to ride it out until Q4, having our employees stay at home. So it's not necessarily a lockdown, but it is, it's still a big difference, right? Absolutely.
Way of operating. Mm-hmm.
So how are you operating right now with your clients, with your business?
COVID has actually been good for the coaching industry. I shouldn't say, think and feel is also a powerful reframe for leaders or humans in general. When speaking about something that you feel as your opinion, don't say you think. Get out of your head, let people know that you're connecting to your heart and it's like actually what you feel or believe. So I feel that COVID is exactly what this world needed, and that's not to discredit all the lives that have been lost, but as a way of existing and operating, we needed an upgrade. It was not working, and I think that the quarantine has really shed light on some people and forced them to kind of go inward and self-reflect and evaluate on how it is they're living their lives. They're being tested and they're learning how unable they are to cope with certain things. Relationships, you're getting real clear on whether or not you have a power partner or if you're in a dysfunctional relationship. So for me, I've actually created a couple clients that it's been fantastic, which is why I'm super passionate right now in creating content to just purchase, because I feel a lot of people have now realized that bringing more awareness around what their values are, who they're being, why they do what they do, and how they're showing up is more, I don't want to say it's easier, but you're able to look at it more and spend more time on it. But additionally, I'm super scary. So investing money and having to talk to me every week, it may be too intense. So let's do a little flirting. Let's do a little foreplay. You buy a program, you do it in the privacy of your own home, maybe have a couple calls, and then we'll go from there. Absolutely. So that's the professional, but personally, it's been great for me to definitely heal and recover. When I came back, the bariatric pressure was really bad on my GI tract. So just being able to, I'd atrophied 15 pounds. I don't really have 15 pounds to lose. So I was really weak. Wow. It's allowed me more time to read and write. I'm co-authoring in a book that's due, that's going to be coming out in a month or so about successful minds.
Very cool.
and my relationships have all definitely upgraded. If there's any takeaway for me personally, I've gotten really clear on who the people are that I want in my life that have shown up in my time of need and support and just listening, that I didn't necessarily think that they were going to be around. And then the people who I thought were going to be here that really aren't, that I don't feel I necessarily need them in my life as much as I had them previously.
Yeah, I think you're spot on with the this giving a lot of people the time to get face to face with themselves, to look at themselves in the mirror, and to have to be forced to kind of talk with themselves, or come to a realization of what are some things that they're lacking in. There's a lot of time. A lot of people have a lot of time on their hands right now, and yeah, I think that's been helpful for me as well. I've seen it with a lot of people too. Like we've already said, this is humanizing so many people. One thing that I've caught on from the very beginning is that, and I know I'm not the only one that's seen this, is, we have, let's say in a team or department, let's say there's one or two people that work remotely. So during a team meeting, those people would Skype in, or they would conference call in, and they have their own set of challenges. Those one or two individuals have those set of challenges that nobody else on that team understands. And their intent is not to be bothersome and have the dog bark. Their intent is not to interrupt and, have the doorbell ringing and interrupt the conversation. Or, there's so many things that just from working at home, as so many people have learned, that you just can't help because it's home, right? And now we have a lot of people who weren't understanding that, who maybe were, I don't want to say stuffy, but they were rigid, that this is the way business needs to be conducted. And now they're being faced with those same challenges, and they're realizing, oh, well, yeah, I guess I wasn't trying to be disruptive. I didn't mean to have mute, off, or, have, forget to click mute. So I think it's humanizing a lot of, it's making, yeah, I'd say that humanizing a lot of ways that people conduct business and conduct themselves in business. Because it's just showing that everyone's human. We're all on the same page.
Well, and also, I think I feel another important aspect of this is boundaries. Really being forced to evaluate your lifestyle. And, everyone, I love when someone gives me the excuse of that time is the reason that their life is a shit show. Because time is the most consistent thing we will ever experience as humans. It never stops. It never speeds up. It never slows down. It's the most consistent relationship you will ever have with an element in your life. And so the beautiful thing about this is we are getting to reestablish boundaries to either help us excel or decel in life. And if you need to decel, that's okay. We've all been there, but so there's the boundaries, but also having an automated routine where you can have a distraction of a car ride, or you have an office, or a specific flow of your day. It's very automated, and the more automated you are, the less intuitive you are. And that's one of the biggest struggles my clients in the first 3 or 4 weeks had, is they're like, holy shit, it is so, I'm really struggling. Like there's polarity of like, I'm not getting anything done because I'm so distracted, or I can't put it down because it's here and I can't walk away from it.
Right.
And so here we go. It's like, even from a lifestyle perspective, you get to become more intuitive with who you're being and what your body is telling you need. Food is a very simple thing. Do you eat food while you're working at home, right? When do you operate the best? That is when you should be working. versus trying to think the 8 to 5 has to happen because you're at home now. Who gives a crap? But then also a simple thing like, well, when are you eating? Are you honoring your hunger and fullness scale? Like, are you putting food in your mouth at the time where you're actually hungry? Or are you putting it in your mouth based off the automated system that you have been conditioned to operate under, even though you're not hungry? Because I don't know about you or anyone else that's watching this, the fridge has a very loud noise when you're working from home. It's like sometimes I find myself in front of it and I'm opening it. I'm like, Alyssa, you're not even hungry. Like, what the hell are you doing? Like, get away from the fridge.
Right.
So there needs to be boundaries. There needs to be boundaries set around, simple barriers of appointments to hunger, fullness, movement, which is hard because intuition is one of the greatest gifts we have that allows us to connect with one another. But when we're moving at such a fast rate and it's an automated rate of doing, it makes it very, like, we have it, it's in us, but we have lost the way and the practice of accessing it and living from it.
That's extremely poignant. I would imagine that you're the same way. You think in this way, and I think in this way. Whenever any situation happens, look towards that positive. Look, how can we make the positive out of this, right? And
Optimistic heart. Absolutely.
And I mean, I've been criticized for that by some of my friends. Like, okay, we get it, Aaron. There's something, something great's going to be here, but now, like during this time, if people aren't taking the opportunity to make some adjustment, I mean, now is the time. Now is the time. If you've ever wanted to adjust your life, adjust your schedule, if you were complaining and you were upset about your schedule before, now is the time to make those changes. Now is the time to, you're right, 8 to 5, we are not in a warehouse. We are not in a factory. We don't need to eat lunch at noon. We can change things up. And I mean, one thing that I looked at is like making content. If anyone out there has wanted to make content before and said, "Oh, I just don't have the time."
Oh my gosh, yes. Like, you have a message and a gift, like, share it.
Yeah, definitely. This is going out to everyone. Make that content. Doesn't matter if it looks good or okay or whatever. And this is coming from the guy that Alyssa, I'm got to make sure these lines are straight, but get the content out there and just start evaluating and adjusting your day. Yeah. I mean, now.
But there's two types of people. There's people that are going to use it as an excuse to get their shit together and to radically up level the way in which they're living. Right. And you're going to use it as an excuse to feed in to the disservicing beliefs or just have it as a reason as to why you can't. And that's the reality. That's the truth, whether you want to admit it or not.
Right.
And it's okay with whatever path you're in because it's just based on your level of consciousness. And so level 1 consciousness is like, oh, I can't because we're in quarantine and it's different and I don't know how to operate and blah, blah, blah. That's level 1, victimhood. Or level 4, the excuse, yeah, I know this is the perfect time. Like I have all this time. I'm going to be able to do this. I'm getting clear. That's level 4 consciousness. That's ascension. And right. That's okay. This is an opportunity for my tech professionals or analytical thinkers. You were an Apple, now you're an Android. Stop trying to operate from home on the Apple system. We are in an Android world.
Right. That's said wonderfully. I know there's a lot of people that in the tech space that watch this. And that's going to connect with them. They're going to be like, or they're going to be like, I'm never getting rid of my apple. Like, okay, all right, you missed the point. What was the intent? Let's take it back. Awesome. I know we're running a little short here on time. Is there, and I kind of spring this on all of my guests, and I've been telling myself maybe I shouldn't do it, but I'm going to keep doing it. After they've given so much great advice, I then dig a little deeper and ask, what other advice can you leave the listeners or the viewers of this to help them during this time of uncertainty, or just, you know, what can you give them? What can you, kind of advice can you give them to help them out during the day?
Permission to feel.
Mm.
When you prevent yourself, when you disconnect, or when you don't allow yourself to feel, it makes you stay in a very heady space. And heady is very anxious ridden. Like that, the saying, when you stay in the past, it creates depression. When you live in the future, it creates anxiety. But when you live in the present, it creates peace. It is a very real thing. And in this world, like especially during quarantine, your ability to feel is exacerbated. It's so heightened and real right now. But we have all these judgments around how we think we should be handling it, or how we think we should be showing up, or how we want to be, what we don't know how to get there. And so we do things that prevent us from actually just feeling what we feel and looking at it from a space of understanding and acceptance versus retraction and like rejection. It's a very real thing. I do a lot in my day that I don't like to do it, but I know it'll help me show up. Like April is a terrible month here in the Midwest. It's rainy, and I really struggle with seasonal affective disorder. So these dark, cold days just like suck me into like a dark space internally. But I know I need to meditate, I need to move, and I need to get my water in. Do I like doing it? Some days, no, it's painful to do, but I do it because I know how it's going to allow me to show up. And I think that's also a missing link. So the first one is permission to feel, to be able to feel with understanding and articulation. The second is making the choice to continually practice doing the things that you may not necessarily like, but are going to be pivotal in allowing you to show up how you want to show up. Not why you want to show up, but how do you want to show up? Have impact versus inspiration for me. Or like, you know, Aaron was talking about earlier, how you show up, being really responsible and taking ownership in your intent and understanding the impact and allowing those to mold together and just be a beautiful exchange of helping you become more connected with yourself and with others.
I feel that this has been a beautiful exchange. Thank you so much. What you were just saying, that sounds very familiar to me, because I've heard you say some of those things in some of the videos. Ladies and gents out there, find her on LinkedIn, Alyssa Poggioli. The name is down there, right there somewhere. You can find it. Follow her on LinkedIn. She's putting out some great content, quick 2, 3, 4 minute videos, some quick snippets. They're very powerful, and they're very valuable.
Or YouTube. I do weekly videos on YouTube. Yeah, that's like my vlog.
Yeah. Well, actually, how about you run down, tell everyone where they can find you, and I'll put it all down here.
Yeah. So weekly video vlog on YouTube. I post a couple times on Instagram. Again, all my things are Alyssa Poggioli. I keep it really, really simple. So LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. And then I also have a private Facebook group of how to confidently be empathetic and analytical in case you want like weekly coaching support. I come on usually once or twice to do live videos within there. But professional setting, LinkedIn, it's a mix of video, text. Obviously, you know, Instagram's platform. Oh, and I write on Medium. That's my blog.
Awesome. Very cool. I'll have all those below, and I'll have all the links in the description. So please check that out. Alyssa, thank you so very much. I'm very grateful that you were able to come on the show and talk with the listeners today. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. See you leaders later.